What was that awakening moment for you to say, this is my ultimate decision in terms of a career path?
I think sometimes even now I still need to tell myself as you're a businesswoman,
Yeah.
businesswoman, because it's a very challenging transition where you constantly need to tell yourself. But I do think I'm getting better at it. There was a point where...
What's the best way to start off Women's Month than to interview one of the most phenomenal women in life? Namhlanje, we have an amazing guest, and welcome back to All Things Leadership Podcast, where we believe that every believer is a leader, and we hope that today's episode adds an amazing value in your life. So please help me welcome Siphokazi Shezi. Yeah. Greetings, Siphokazi.
Hi.
Njani?
Ngiyaphila, ninjani?
Siyaphila. Welcome to the show.
I'm happy to be here. Finally.
Yeah. Thanks for coming back, as we didn't come back as well. Yeah. So Siphokazi, let's just get straight into it. When was the first time you identified or you recognized leadership in your life?
Sure. The first time, I think, if I can think primary, I wasn't really aware of leadership. Actually, I was, because you in your primary years, you go through like prefects. So you start like looking at people like, oh, okay, people are being selected to be a prefect.
Yeah.
But I think that's also very vague. You see that as a role, and you see that as maybe I've accomplished something for me to be there. And then you also just get an idea, oh, okay, this is how you actually are meant to just do it. If it's grade ones, you're meant to just tell them, keep quiet, do this, and that's it. But I think I went to Wits University. In Germany.
Yeah.
So it was just two positions. So I was serving under the Christian Action Fellow. Was when I was in university. It was actually
Which university?
I went to Wits University. In
Germany.
So it was just two positions. So I was serving under the Christian Action Fellowship, which was a Christian organization where I had a specific role or a leadership position that I had, as well as the residence where I was staying at that time, Sunnyside.
Sunnyside.
I was in the house committee.
Yeah.
So that was like, okay, now this is leadership. This is work. So those were just the main two.
Wow.
Yeah.
And tell me about your dream as a high school student. Were you dreaming of being a social worker? What led you to taking that decision?
I think for the longest time, I just thought me and social work makes sense because people would always be saying, you have a nice heart, we think you should go into this. So I was always trying to link the two. Okay, where do I fit in? And I think for the longest time, I always wanted to also do something like great or big. Also, when you go into social work, I think most social workers might also identify you get into a point where the idea eventually is to just help the world. You want to help people in the streets. You want to help build like an old age home or like a shelter for the people, because that's the mentality you go in with. But also, even as you're learning with how you should be helping people, you start thinking, I could do this, I could do that. So I felt... What was the question?
Yes. Like how did you end up choosing that career?
Social. Oh yes. So then what happened was, because of those whole ideas, you end up thinking, I could actually use social work to then do this. Or when I'm in social work, and the fact that I've landed in social work, then you start dreaming of, I could do this, I could open up this, I could help people. So I think then that's where you start dreaming bigger, because the courses that you are doing, the modules that you are doing are allowing you, are tapping into your mind for you to start thinking bigger.
Yeah. I'd like you to educate me and the other guests, abangas, you know. When I think of social work, I'm thinking of a grant. You know, I'm thinking of social grants, and I'm thinking of people who don't make much money because they get employed by NGOs and there has to be a driving factor for you to select such a career because it's not as glorified as like engineers and as doctors, as lawyers. What was that awakening moment for you to say, this is my ultimate decision in terms of the career path?
I think when I was going into it, I remember having a fight with my dad. I said, Nene, what did you write as your main choice? Because I think my points were good enough that I could get some of the things that I wanted. And so it was an option between accounting, teaching, and social work. So he wanted me to obviously go into accounting. And I was like, Nina, I chose accounting. He's like, let me see. And I was like, and I chose accounting, knowing very well that I chose social work. So I think I had a strong conviction about it, but I don't really know where was it coming from. I just thought it links, you know, and I wanted to go with a passion. But going into it and studying it, the passion then, I guess, grew a bit more in terms of you start dreaming bigger, you start thinking, oh, okay, this aligns. I remember also with just the other modules, not even just social work, when I did psychology and sociology, you start relating yourself and saying, oh, this makes sense in my life. And when you are able to then see yourself through what you are learning, you then are thinking, okay, I can apply this when I start working. When you start doing the casework, the practical side of it, then you start thinking, okay, this actually makes sense. So I guess the passion for me was during the journey when I was in it. But yeah, when I was done studying, a passion just vanished. I was like, where's the job? Where's the job? But yeah, the passion.
And when did your dad discover what you're actually studying social work?
When I was accepted, because they asked, okay, you accepted for what? And I was like, for social work. So I had to lie, because accounting, they didn't consider me because of 1, 2, and 3. But I think he definitely, or eventually, let it go. And he was like, okay, you know, so long as you're in university, because that's what's important, and you're studying something, then just continue. Because I remember even when I finished, he wasn't like, if only. He was willing to just like assist and say, okay, let's look for a job. Let's do this. Yeah.
So at home, they always encouraged you to go after your dreams?
Yes, I can say that was it. Though it wasn't always that language, but it was more of go for something that you enjoy. But there was an element of it must also have money, because I think in the society that we're living in, especially the jobs as well, you want to make sure that there's a job after you've studied.
Wow. And so now you're finishing your degree. Now there's a struggle and there's a wrestle, because Ispani, and what were some of the stresses that you're going through?
I think at that time, like when I look back, I was like, hey, whoa, that was depression. Like that was real depression. I remember coming back because I'd graduated and then I went back home. I stayed home for like a full month, like not doing anything. And it was difficult to adjust because I was coming from Joburg and now I'm back. And I'm not doing anything. So I guess one of the stresses was also just going over my head and thinking, like, am I really just going to not do anything for the rest of my life? Because in that short amount of period of time, you start thinking of your entire life in a very short span, and you fast forward and you think, if I don't have a job, then I'm going to land up here and then this is going to happen. So it was just like my mind spiraling out of control. But yeah, I do think with time, I eventually did overcome that, because it got to a point where I was just like, you know what, let me just do anything. Let me just get up. I remember going to apply at Pick and Pay and saying, can I be a cashier?
Yes.
Because, I don't have anything that I'm doing at the moment. Knowing very well.
So you're willing to settle for any job at the time.
Yes. Knowing very well, I had an honors degree. I just came from the university that's well spoken of. And I think that also humbled me in a way. Which I guess was also one of the stresses, because you're working with different kinds of people, you're meeting different kinds of people, and your brain is like, why are you here?
Wow.
What's happening? And you sometimes think, maybe I'm just gonna land up here, or maybe my life is gonna stop here. But little did I know that for me, that was my training ground of just realizing how to work with people, because in a setting like that, you're a cashier, you're dealing with a lot of people.
So you did find the job to be a cashier?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, at least something is going well in my life.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then, did you eventually find the job to be a social work?
Yes. So I stayed about 5-6 months at Pick and Pay, and then I got a job as a social worker. So yeah, I think after that, everything else was like, phew. And it really just did become a training field when I look back. Because once I was where I wanted to be, doing the work that I studied for, everything just made sense. And I was more happy, I was more relieved. I was like, God, yes, you are here.
Yeah.
I can see you now. But I guess when you're at that moment, you don't really see, gonna go, it's okay, God is just preparing me. Yeah.
And has it always been your dream to be an entrepreneur? Tell us, Wuti, how did that one come about? Because now you're working at Pick and Pay. Your dream job was to be a social work. Now you find the dream job, and all of a sudden, surprise, now you're a businesswoman. Tell me about the transition.
I think sometimes even now I still need to tell myself, because you're a businesswoman, because it's a very challenging transition where you constantly need to tell yourself. But I do think I'm getting better at it. There was a point where I had to just tell myself, you know what, even if I didn't think I was going to be a businesswoman, I'm here. I need to accept it and learn what it entails. And I think I'm still on that journey. But yeah, it's such things as I need to print a business card. When I present myself, I need to have a card. I need to speak like this. I need to say this because I'm the business or I'm the brand. And it's things that last time I learned about business was in high school, where I did accounting. But I didn't think it was going to be relevant because I left accounting there only to pursue social work. So yeah, now and again, I always have to remind myself, I'm the business.
So that's incredible. So I'd like for us to reverse and say, right now I'm employed. When did the idea of being a businesswoman spark? And from the idea to execution, how did that one come about? You know, to a point of, what did you leave your job? Were you fired at your work? What was the motivating factor for you to say, I'm doing this full time? Or did you start part time? And
I think it came because under normal circumstances, I'm someone that's I calculate. After I've calculated, then I'm like, I don't think I'm fit for that. So the idea came in my frustration. So I'm working as a social worker, but around me, the environment, the people, you start thinking, this 1, 2, and 2, you're linking things and you're thinking, nah, this doesn't make sense. Or this shouldn't be happening like this. So you start seeing the situation in a different light that pushes you to say, you know what? All I need is this and that. And if I can link all these things, I can actually get my way out of this whole situation. So that became a thought. I remember starting the process, but I didn't really complete it until where I was working, the contract ended. So then at that time I was forced to say, okay, what happens? Because I did continue on, but I saw when I was continuing on, it wasn't helping. Like I wasn't getting the amount of salary that I was getting before. So I thought, okay, for me to actually just, I guess, be more happier, because I was thinking either if I stay or leave, I'm still going to be at the same level. So let me just make a decision. And it was more of which environment do I want to be in. So then I left the environment saying, let me just pursue this. We'll see where it goes. Not realizing ukuthi uNkulunkulu will actually just provide as he had. And also realizing that I'm actually graced for where I am, which was just like a shock. I'm like, what? Mina. So I think that also has been so eye-opening to know and realize ukuthi I've been graced not only with helping people or being a social worker, but also with business. Because I'm like, I don't think that was my lane though.
Amazing. Yeah. And what's the difference between a social worker and a psychologist?
So social work, we usually use the model of we want to empower people. So it's a very, very broad scope. So empowering people could look like in different ways. It could be advocating for someone, it could be counseling them, it could be providing education or resources for them. Hence why you get your social worker that will do a grant, because why they're providing a means of resources to the people. From their homes to a foster care, because they're advocating, they're protecting, as well as counseling. So counseling is when you actually sit down with that child or that patient, whoever it is, or the client, and you're saying, okay, the way in which I need to empower them is not just a matter of resources or information or advocation, but it's just to chat to them and get to where are they at, what's going on in the environment, how can I better assist them so that they can come out. With psychology, please quote me right, or I'm not entirely sure, but I think for them, it's mainly just dealing with behavior. So when you're looking at an individual, you're looking at what behavior are they showing and how can we then change the behavior, which is usually a negative behavior, to a more positive. So it's usually working with your personality there, your mind, could be also external issues, but you just want to change the behavior. I think social work sometimes goes into, yes, we see the person, but also we're concerned about the environment, because when we empower, we understand that a person isn't just a person yet, but it's that concept of umuntu or umuntu ngabantu. So you want to then incorporate all these things that contribute to making up this person. That
is really incredible. And can you speak a bit to us about indaba mental health? I know there is such a word, but what is mental health?
Sure. I think every time I need to define this definition, like I always have different definitions depending on where I'm at in life and what I've been doing. But I've just come to realize that mental health is basically the state of your mind being at its most healthiest. But we understand what goes on in our minds isn't just the thinking process, but the thinking is related to your emotions, because you think and then you feel. Once you feel, then you start acting or behaving. So it's basically when you're now looking at that whole cycle of my mind has to think healthy, but like, what is my heart saying? What are my emotions and my feelings doing? Are they also healthy? And then when I look at my behavior, is it also healthy? So mental health is basically looking at that balance. And sometimes that balance isn't going so well. And if it's not going so well and you can't find ways of coping or having that balance, then that's where you get your mental health illnesses, such as your depression, your bipolar, all the others, the anxiety. But it's mainly when you're looking at mental health, how do I make sure that when I'm happy, I can sustain that, or when I'm sad, because it's not like you're not allowed to feel sad, but I can still sustain that so that my view of how I perceive the world around me relating to my thoughts is still healthy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And how do you keep yourself in check? You know, how do I know if right now as I'm speaking to you
Then
that I'm actually mentally healthy?
Yeah. It's a difficult one because even ourselves, you go through moments. I think the first one is self-introspection. If you know how to introspect yourself and you have the skills or the capacity, do it. And we introspect in different ways. You could introspect by keeping a diary, writing down your feelings, your thoughts, what am I doing, where am I at, finding a quiet place, retracking what have I been doing, what's going on in my life. And when you allow yourself to do that, because you're looking at yourself outside yourself, then you're saying, okay, actually, I don't think I'm thinking right because I can't be thinking like this, or the way I'm feeling is bad. And if you fail to do that, go to then someone close to you, your friends, your partner, your family members, people that you live with, people that also know you very well, and go check yourself with them and say, hey, like, how are you experiencing me, during this season?
Hey, how are you experiencing me? What a question.
It's important because you want to find out, am I still okay?
Yeah.
Some people will tell you without you even saying. They're like, I ain't gay. Right now you're not yourself. Yes.
I wanted to come to that. So Tina, how do we help another person that we see which they have abnormal behavior and make them aware which they need assistance or they need help or they need to speak to someone?
Yeah, I think approach is very important. So when you can see it, you first want to reach out as a friend. You want to reach out as someone that's concerned. You don't want to reach out as this professional that knows everything, you've studied or you know, and then you're like, I think you have depression based on 1, 2, and 3. So you reach out as a friend and you say, I realize that you usually are just sad, or you get very annoyed quickly, or you've been aggressive, or you've been acting out, or I see your statuses are just saying this. Hey, what's going on? Because why I'm showing concern. All right, Tina, you okay? Do you want to talk about anything? I think if then they don't allow you to intervene, then you probably might raise the seriousness of, sometimes if this happens, usually people like this can have depression or can lead to a point where they're not coping, and this will then affect 1, 2, and 3. So you can only do that. It is challenging because if people don't allow you to be if people don't allow you to support them, then they don't really get the help that they need. But I guess when you have the right approach, then it's easy for you to get involved. If you can't help them as well, say, you know what, I actually know this counselor or the psychologist or the social worker. If you talk to them, you actually are going to get the help that you need. I think let's try them. And you're also journeying with them, especially if it's still something new. Because such things, especially if you're not exposed to, can be very weird and awkward, and people are like, hey, I talk to someone that I don't know about my problem. So you just support them throughout.
Wow. Yeah. So I hear you. So let's get to the healing process. Because in my head, umuntu can be aware of what's happening around their situation, and then they need to kick out of victim mentality, because omunye umuntu would just feel sorry for themselves and justify bad behavior because of the traumatic events in their lives. So omunye umuntu would say, vele ngasho baba, I'm like this because my dad abandoned me. I'm like this because my mom has done A, B, C, and D. Or I'm like this because I'm an orphan. So now I need help to go beyond the identification of the trauma. I want to get to the healing space. How do we do that?
Sure. I was just thinking, like when you said I must define mental health, in that case, the person's perception has been distorted based on the trauma. So whatever is happening in their life now, is a result of distortion. So they're saying because my parents or because my dad was like this, that's why. And they also then using that excuse of it's because of the trauma. So when you get to a healing process, you basically unpack. You want to unpack, maybe then it could first be the trauma where because it weighs a lot on perception, it weighs a lot on how you perceive the world around you, what you look at, what you choose to process in your brain. So when you unpack the trauma, you unpack what actually happened. How were you impacted within that trauma? How do you look at the trauma outside yourself so that we take the positives of the trauma? And I always think with whatever situations we go through, when we victimize or when we say it's my fault, we actually are presenting a very biased approach, because we're saying that you entirely were fully responsible, which is really untrue, because there's no one situation where you are only the contributing factor. There'll always be someone did this, that happened, that other thing happened. But when you victimize, you're just saying I solely was responsible. So when you're unpacking that trauma, you want to show different aspects or different components to that trauma, so that you actually remove them out in terms of them seeing themselves as a victim. And once you are able to do that and they can take the positives out of that trauma, also considering traumas are very different. Some traumas directly just make you feel like I'm the victim, it was my fault. So once you do that, take the positive, regardless of whatever trauma it was, try find the positive out of it. It is going to be a journey and a process. Then you start working on how do we then get you to start presenting a better or a more positive perception of the world around you, because the idea is that you have control of what then your future looks like. You still have control to change it, so don't let then the past be your present or be your future.
That is so incredible. That's amazing. And before I get to the last question, what impact do you want to have in the world?
It's a deep one. I don't know, but I think I want to leave Serenity House.
Serenity House is your business?
Yes. Okay. So Serenity House Institute is my business. I just want to leave it there for whoever will. So the idea is that I still have plans about it that I haven't yet really started and actually materialized. But if I'm to leave an impact, knowing that I won't be there, I want the Serenity House to be there. Whoever is going to be continuing on with it, I want Serenity House to be there, meaning that I want the availability of people being assisted, being counseled, being freed, being assisted in whatever journey in terms of counseling that they are in, so that they eventually are in a state of serene, or are more at peace, or are more settled in whatever area of their life they are in.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how do people get a hold of you if they'd like to contact you?
Okay, so I can say my number. Do I look into
If you feel free to do that, go for it. Yeah.
So my business number is 076-455-7429. I am also on Instagram, which is my business account. So it's _Serenity House Institute, which is one word, _. Those are just the two platforms at the moment.
Lastly, do you think social workers should be compensated more than what's happening now? Or do you think the pay grade especially is okay? Do you think what more could be done for social workers?
Okay, on the compensation side, I don't want to comment too much because I think like any other career, you want to be paid more.
Yes.
But I think the most important thing is just the idea of what social work is, and the social worker should be made more prestige, if I can say that. Like
teachers.
Yes, people should think, I want to be a social worker.
Yeah.
Because I think the way it's being presented as not so great, not so nice, including the pay. But I do think that when people also are entering into the profession, they must not be misled to think, I'm going to be earning this, I'm going to be earning that. Because naturally, really, the profession needs you to work. It needs you to, you need to have a heart for what you are doing. So I'm not saying we must be compensated because we work so much, then we should be paid so much. Naturally, that should be something that I guess the government lays to say, you know what, if you work this much, this is how much you get paid. But more than pay of a social worker should be emphasized to say this is the greatest job that one can do if you want to seek for fulfillment, or if you want to seek to just help people. This is the greatest job that you should do, because it is. It's the passion behind it. It's the work where you don't always need a pat on the back. We do it because we love to see people being assisted.
Yo, that's incredible. And to our viewers at home, what a great interview it has been. We've been waiting for this interview for a long time. Just 3 main points that I learned from this interview is that you need to have a heart for what you're doing. You need to have passion. It needs to start from the inside. And also, great ideas can start from a place of frustration, but you need to act upon those ideas that you have, and don't despise the days of small beginnings, because great things are still yet to come. Until next time, City, thank you so much, and be on the lookout for the next episode. Dango.